Hello and welcome. This is Damali Namali, and this is Weekly Wisdom with Damali here from Forerunner Counseling, located in Montclair, New Jersey. And this channel, I tend to talk to you about relationship dynamics. I talk to you about emotions. I talk about mental health. And many times I add into a spiritual aspect to this topic so that you can have a way of allowing God or spirituality to play a role into your well-being. This is the first Monday after Thanksgiving. So many of you hope you had a great one, a great Thanksgiving, which was on Thursday, the 28th of November, 2024. And many of you had to deal with your parents or your relatives or maybe friends and family. And so to some people, holidays is such a good thing to go through, and to some people, it's a painful experience. Some of you are grieving loved ones that are not at the table when you're celebrating. Some of you wish those people were not at the table while you're celebrating. So everyone is in different spaces when it comes to relatives or family and holidays. So what I'm going to talk to you today is healing parental relationships. How do we heal through parental relationships, and why is this relationship such an important topic for us to address? First of all, this parental relationship is one of the most strong bonding relationship for everyone, because imagine you are in your mother's womb for like 9 months. If you're not born prematurely, you finished your 9 months and you came out. So you really had a connection to your parent, to your mother, and if your father was also part of the process of you engaging, talking to you while you're still in your mother's womb, then you kind of had that attachment at a very young age. And so when it comes to who we are, the way we interact, the way we understand ourselves, the way we interpret the world, the way we perceive others, the way we perceive they think of us is how they identify us, and even how we identify ourselves is really rooted a lot of times from our parental relationships. So for some of you who may find this subject very sensitive, I really encourage you to hang in there. Just watch the whole video. Don't just check out because you're in a place where you don't want to deal with your parents, or your parents may not necessarily be here. Whatever that circumstance may be, I really hope that you can go watch the whole video. So by the way, for those of you who have not subscribed to my channel, please like and subscribe and share with those people that you may find that this video may be helpful to. Um, the person that we are is being shaped predominantly by the people that raised us, caregivers. And I've also have worked with people whose parents were not able to raise them, especially immigrant families that maybe they migrated to the United States and then their children were left in the countries of origin. And that separation kind of also shaped the children in a different way. And I'm going to share what those things may look like. But why is this so important for us to address? Anyway, from a spiritual standpoint, there is a verse in Proverbs that says that he who curses his mother and father, his light will be put out. It's in Proverbs. I think it's either Proverbs 20. But what does it mean for your light to be put out if you curse your mother and father? And what does cursing mother and father look like? Again, this is a very deep subject. I don't want you to give up. Just power through and watch the whole video. Um, the Bible says that we should honor our mothers and fathers. So meaning that sometimes when we're not able to honor mother and father, we may end up cursing them. Honoring the parent doesn't necessarily mean that you have to agree to everything. You have to be enslaved by their authority. You have to do whatever they want you to do. It doesn't mean that you don't have a voice because they're your parents, whatever they say goes. Because a lot of cultures interpret honoring mother and father like that. So because I birthed you, I have a legal right to your life and your decisions. That definitely means to that child that your parents are God. And I don't think that that's how God intended it to be, that your parents are God over your life. Your parents are vehicles that God used for you to come on this planet, but they are not God over your life. And so honoring a parent means that you place value on the position that they have in your life, the way you talk about them, the way you think about them, the way you relate with them. You don't necessarily have to agree with them, but you respect the position that they have. Now, their parents who have done a lot of dishonorable things to their children, how do those children respond to such parents? Again, like I said, this is a very strong relationship, a bonding relationship. This is not gonna be like a one size fits all because many of you may be in different stages of your relationships with your parents. Some of you have worked through it, some of you have never touched it, some of you are in the mid process of healing through it. You may be in different stages in your relationship, but I'm coming from the angle of how do you heal this relationship, especially for parents who have been very dishonoring. This is one of the subjects that I like working with because I had to work through my parents. My parents think that we're not necessarily like abusive or toxic in a way, but they were humans. They made their mistakes. They did, they made decisions from their vantage point were good decisions, but at the same time ended up having consequences on my end. And I didn't even know that because when I was growing up, my perception of a good parent is like they don't hit me, they don't abuse me per se, but they're good. And so as I started my journey in therapy, I remember the first time that I did my session, my therapist asked me when I was a kid, what did home look like to me? Because I grew up in a boarding school and I never dawned on me like my heart never experienced that feeling of being at home, feeling at home because I started being in a boarding school at age 7. So it took me a while to process what that really was, so that I'm able to grow in my understanding, to grow in the level of healing. So what are some of the things that a good parent is supposed to offer to a child? A good parent is dependable. A child can depend on a parent. And I say this to my clients a lot. Children need parents. Parents don't need children. A child cannot feed themselves. A child cannot take care of themselves. They depend on their parents. And even emotionally, a child's emotional regulation is dependent on the parent's nervous system. If the parent is consistently having anxiety, anger, depression, roller coaster emotions, all of that dysregulates the child because the child doesn't have stability on the emotional level. And so one of the roles that a parent gives to a child is dependability. Okay. The other thing is a child receives comfort from their parents. These are things that a parent offers to a child, comfort. We all know living on this earth, life is not a walk in the park and it's not exempting from children. The challenges a child may experience may not be the challenges an adult may experience. They go through fears. You've had those stories like there are monsters in my room or my friends don't like me. How do you comfort the child when the child falls down when they're trying to ride a bike? How do you comfort them? Even in infantry, when they are feeding, when they are crying nonstop and you're irritated by the nonstop crying because you haven't slept the whole night, how do you comfort a child? This is why you see that as parents, everyone is going to make mistakes. But comfort is another characteristic of a good parent. The other thing that a good parent does is supportive. They are supportive of their children, meaning that you may not necessarily like the hobbies or the goals or dreams the child may have, but one of your roles as a parent is to support your child's dreams or their lives. If they have friends and they're going through a difficult time, you support them in being there, in listening to them, in understanding, in strengthening them, empowering them. You are supportive to your children. Now, as I say these things about characteristics of a good parent, I hope you're looking to see where your parents were not able to offer that to you and how that has affected you, in your adulthood, in your relationships, in your life at work, everywhere. See how if your parents were not dependable, they were not comforting, they were not supportive, how that has affected you, right? Your parents are supposed to be kind to you. And it's so weird that I'm saying these things that kindness is a form of love, like we all know from the fruits of love, the attributes of love. Love is kind. One of children don't have cognitive capabilities like adults, so they experience love. You spend time with them. You are kind to them. You're not disciplining them out of cruelty or out of anger, but you're kind to their little beings and can see them as little as opposed to expecting them to be grown. Parents are supposed to be nurturing. One of the things that a parent does is to observe a child for who they are and then nurture those attributes in a child. There are children who are very independent. There are children who are very relational. There are children who are very task-oriented. There are children who are very artistic. There are children in any way, nurturing a child in all those things are there, but nurturing also means that you will create a space for them to just be themselves. You nurture the gifts in them, you nurture the humanistic values and traits in them so that they don't have to pretend to be someone that they are not. You nurture them. You nurture them emotionally, you nurture them physically, you nurture them mentally, you nurture them socially, that they feel that there is enough room for them to just be themselves. The other role of another characteristics of a good parent is they are protective. They protect their children. In this day of social media, sometimes when you see kids doing playing with other kids or playing with animals or playing outside and things like that, one of the things we all have witnessed, or we not witnessed, but we have seen the effects is how childhood sexual abuse happens a lot in families, a lot more than we would want it to be, that so many children are not protected from predators, so many children are not protected from mean or hurtful parents. All these things have played a role into the lives of different people in their present relationships or in their own identity in their lives. The other thing is a good parent is supposed to instruct their children. Children don't know how to survive on this earth. I always use this example. Imagine you went to a country that speaks a completely different language from yours. And how will you navigate that world? You need someone to guide you, you need someone to help you. So children come on this planet as brand new people. They don't know how to live on this earth. You have to guide them. You have to share to just like you teach them how to cross the road. You're supposed to guide them in helping them knowing how to live on this earth because another person used this example. It's like some kids grow up like being on the school bus going to school. They drop you off, they pick you up, they drop you off, they pick you up, and they drop you to school, pick you up from home, pick you up from home, drop you off from school, blah, blah, blah. And then when you turn 18, they drop you, and this time the stop is go into the world. And you have no idea where to begin. You don't know that you needed credit. You did not know that you needed to get licensed. You didn't know how to drive a car. And so parents are supposed to instruct their children in how to live on this earth. So imagine if you never got any good characteristics from your parents, how do you feel like that has affected you? How does that show up in your marriage? How does it show up in your friendships? How does that show up at work? Because it really does. And part of the healing that we all go through in this life is to be who God created us to be. But if the version that you were has been shaped by people who are not healthy, how do you know that this is good and this is wrong? This is how we see suffering. This is how we see pain in our relationships. You go a lot of people, you're married, you love your spouse, but at the same time, they make you so angry and they take you into that helplessness that you experienced as a child, but you don't know how to get out of it. You find yourself in emotional pain, suffering like depression, anxiety, fear, you know, overwhelmed, not knowing how to navigate those spaces because you were never instructed, you were never nurtured, you were never guided into knowing how to even regulate your own nervous system because theirs was not regulated. And now you're here as an adult struggling to navigate to be alive or to relate to people, and you're almost in a verge of like, I don't think I want this. So if any of this resonates with you, I want you to know that even if you, let's say your parents were not good, they never had good characteristics, that even if you moved and you went to a different continent, if you physically remove yourself from your parents without dealing with the emotional and psychological, spiritual conditions that they left you with, all those things are going to go with you wherever you go. The distance does not heal from parental pain. And all of us are required to navigate that relationship. Even the people who may say that my parents were good, because if they were good, so good, where you never needed God, that's a good thing. But I also know that there is no good enough person that even in their good intentions, they did the best that they could, but because of their humanity, there were some scars that were created. And to some people, it's very difficult to acknowledge those scars because they feel like their parents did a great job. But that's the idolatry of the heart towards the parent, because I tell my clients that the parent-child relationship is a very idolatrous relationship, because remember, children need parents, parents don't need children. Children tend to idolize their parents. And if you don't heal through that relationship, that idolatry is going to come and manifest itself in different relationships. Because anytime you go into different, maybe it's friendship or it's marriage, work, the way you present, the way you were as a child with your parents, if let's say they were overbearing and you decided, I'm just going to make peace with everyone, that's how you're going to show up in your friendships. Or you decide, I'm not going to let anyone control me or have any authority over me. That's how you're going to show up in your friendships. But you realize that the root of that behavior stemmed from your parents or caregivers. For those of you who didn't have that privilege of having your biological parents, but you had caregivers that were there. And even if you were adopted, or even if your parents um, use relatives to raise you, you still have to deal with mother and father. So if you've never touched this subject before, there is always a beginning, but you cannot just ignore it and just say they were good parents, because your ability to see you, like again, that scripture that says that he who curses mother and father, his light will be put out. Your ability to see yourself the way God created you is going to be limited if your relationship with your parents is still messy, because you don't see yourself for who you are. You see yourself either as a victim or as someone that needs to overcome parents, overpowering your parents, to be better than your parents. You don't have the freedom to be yourself. I remember I had a client who really did not have a great experience with their father, and their aim in life was, I'll never be like him. And I told them that you have decided this to that extent that you have lost who you really are. You don't even know who you are because you're so lost in, I don't want to be like my father. And many people do that as a way to cope, because the perception or the experience of dealing with a parent for who they were is so painful that you have to be the better person. I can empathize for people whose parents may be molested them, people whose parents were murderers, people whose parents we bankrupted them. Those are very difficult things to process. And everyone processes differently. There are people who go through seasons where they don't engage with their parents, they don't talk to them. The most important thing, at least we can know, that God looks at that intentions and the motives of the heart. You may talk to your parents, but you may have bitterness and anger towards them. You may not talk to your parents, but you're wise enough to realize that that's my boundary, and I'm going to draw this line because I respect them enough. Interacting with them is going to cause us to fight a lot, and I don't want that. And you distance yourself. God knows where you were. As I close out in this video, there is something that Jesus said. For those of you who are Christians, Jesus said, if you're gonna be his disciple, you must hate your mother and your father. your husband, your wife, your children, and deny yourself and pick up the cross and follow Christ. And a lot of us, for the most part, believe that denying or you hating your mother and father means you don't listen to them. But Ecclesiastic says that there is a time for every under the sun. There is a time and a season for everything under the sun. There is a time to love. There is a time to hate. You know, there are times when the heart of a child has to hate the parent so that they can see God, because there is a healthy hatred that the heart may need. And for people who never have that, like I never had that hatred for my parents. I had to ask God to give me the healthy hatred for my parents so that my heart, you know, my heartstrings were not pulled by that idolatry of they have to approve of me, they have to accept me, they have to be proud of me. Those are things that we needed as children, but when we get older in our adult relationship with our parents, they don't have to agree with what we do. They don't even have to like what we do if this is what God called us to do. But some people don't know how to process this. So I invite you, if this video resonates with you and you've never done therapy, you've never addressed your parental relationship, or it looks like a very enormous thing to deal with, please reach out to me at www.forerunnercounseling.com and please navigate this relationship, because it's going to bleed into your parenting relationship, your marital relationship, and all these other relationships, even with God. And it doesn't have to be like that. You may not know how to draw boundaries with your family, especially mom and dad, and I would definitely help you to know how to do that. But please reach out to me if this video has spoken to you, has encouraged you, and it has opened up your understanding in different areas. Please put a comment on there, share it with your friends, and reach out to me at forerunnercounseling.com for a free consultation, and then I will help you. I'll help you to navigate these spaces, but don't ignore the subject. The person that you are, the person that you have become to be, has been shaped by your caregivers, predominantly mother and father, whether they rejected or accepted you. The print marks are still there. So be who God wants you to be as opposed to who you don't want to be. Thank you so much for watching. Again, www.forerunnercounseling.com. My name is Damani. This is Weekly Wisdom. Thank you for watching. Bye.